Good evening, everyone, and welcome to another night of live Penguin TV. And happy Halloween! My name's Megan. I'm going to be talking to you about all things penguin as we watch the world's smallest species of penguin, our beautiful little penguins coming out of the water and crossing the beach up to their burrows here on Phillip Island in Victoria, Australia. And tonight I'm joined by Heather. Heather, come on in and let us know what you're going to be doing tonight.
Good evening, everyone. I'm going to be monitoring the YouTube questions and answering your questions on YouTube, and maybe throwing Megan a couple of curly questions.
Ooh.
And just letting you know, last night we had 1,729 penguins cross the beach.
Wow, 1,729 penguins. That's a good
Yep.
effort for last night. Did any of you guess close to that? Let us know in the comments if you think you got nice and close. What else is happening tonight, Heather?
Well, there's something really exciting happening tonight. It's a full moon, folks,
Ooh.
and it's what we call a blue moon. And a blue moon is when there are 2 full moons in the 1 month. So how lucky are we? We've got Halloween, we've got a full moon, and
Night. Tune in tomorrow night. I'll be here again. And then tune in the night after. Keep tuning in night after night, and I'm sure we'll answer your questions eventually. Now, tonight, as well as being Halloween, it is also a special day for one of our regular Wattle watchers, Tim. And it is Tim's birthday, so I would like to wish Tim a very, very happy birthday. I'd like to say, happy birthday, Tim. Hope you've had a great day, and I hope you're watching with us again tonight. And I am dressed as a penguin tonight, so I will try and channel my inner penguin as I'm talking to you guys about all things penguin tonight. This was done by our lovely fellow live stream ranger and my housemate Jordan, so she can have all the credit for that. So what we are looking out onto now, we are looking out onto Summerlands Beach, and this is where our penguins are going to be crossing tonight, making a dangerous dash across the beach back home to their burrows. So we might scroll across to the ocean and we'll see if we can spot that blue moon. There it is, just above the water. I might actually see if I can get a bit of a better look as it's just come out from behind the clouds. There we go. Oh, I can just see it. I'll zoom out a little bit. So a beautiful full moon tonight, which is lovely for us to see, but it might make it a little bit more scary for our penguins tonight on Halloween as they are coming out of the water. Because what our little penguins are doing right now, they are out here in the water. They are forming groups that we call rafts. So they're out here somewhere, and we'll see if we can spot them. They do look like a black line on the surface of the ocean as those penguins are forming their groups, getting ready to come in, and they'll be talking to each other. They'll be going, huck, 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 huck. So if you're tuning in for the first time, you're wondering what I was on about when I was hucking away, that is the noise the penguins make, talking to each other, trying to work out whether it's safe to cross the beach or not. And while they're forming those groups, they're looking up at the horizon, waiting for it to get a little bit darker, because once the sun goes down, that's when their main predators here on land, predatory birds, things like sea eagles or Pacific gulls, they go to roost for the night, and that's when it's safest for the penguins to cross the beach. But I have just seen something scary landing on the beach, which might delay our penguins a little bit more. So I'm going to go down and try and zoom in on this bird that has just landed right in front of us here. So this guy, not this little silver gull up the top, but this bird right in the middle of the screen having a bit of a snack on the beach. This is a Pacific gull. So this guy is about twice the size of your regular seagull, and this is one of the predators of our little penguins. So this big Pacific gull, he's probably going to make sure those penguins stay in the water a little bit longer, because if they see him waiting here on the beach, they're probably not going to cross. They'll wait till he's gone, or if they're feeling brave, they might try and sneak past this big Pacific gull on their way home. So that's going to make it a little bit more dangerous for our penguins on their dangerous dash across this beach. It is the most dangerous and most vulnerable time of the penguins' day. So they're going to be on the lookout for any birds flying overhead, any of these Pacific gulls, swamp harriers, sea eagles, any big bird that might be able to make a penguin into a snack. But hopefully, as it gets a little bit darker and a little bit later in the night, this bird should fly off and our little penguins should be safe enough to cross the beach. I'll zoom out a little bit and we'll have a bit more of a look for some of our rafts of penguins. I'm sure you guys, if you're one of our regular water watchers, you're probably getting lots of practice at spotting those rafts. And I'm only looking on quite a small screen, so you might be able to see those rafts before I see them. So let us know if you do see any. Oh, is there some penguins there, or am I seeing things? Let's have a bit of a look. I think there might be some early penguins. What are you guys doing? It's so bright and there's a Pacific gull on the beach and we already have some penguins swimming around. But they're not yet coming up onto the beach, so they might just be coming in to have a little bit of a look, see what's going on. We have two groups. There's one on the right and one on the left swimming. They're quite small little rafts and it looks like they might be going back out. They've decided it's still a little bit light. Oh, they're not quite safe with this Pacific gull here. Ooh, let's zoom in and see what happens here. Now, it isn't very often that we do see a predatory bird even try and catch a penguin, let alone actually get one. I've never seen a predatory bird catch a penguin. I know some rangers have, but it's not something that happens often. I have seen a Pacific gull swoop a group of penguins trying to come out of the water before, so they'll definitely give it a go, but penguins aren't their usual food, so they're definitely not a staple in their diet. They might just be a little bit opportunistic, and it's usually the juvenile, so the young Pacific gulls that'll give that a go. This guy here looks like he just wants to have a bit of a bath, so we'll keep an eye on this and see what happens. And there we go. The penguins are just going to go around. They're going to come around here through the rocks where they're feeling a little bit safer by the looks of it. And as I was saying before, we are joining you from here on Phillip Island, and Phillip Island is also known as Millau. And that is a traditional name given to this island by the Bunurong. And the Bunurong were the first people here on Phillip Island. Oh, and good, the Pacific gull is gone. And the Bunurong would have been the first people coming here and maybe seeing these penguins crossing the beach, because they were coming here for thousands of years before European settlement, before there were houses or roads or a bridge onto the island. The Bunurong were spending their spring and summer days here looking for food, shellfish, short-tailed shearwater birds, living very sustainably on this beautiful land here on Millau and taking only what they needed from the land. And I would like to thank them and acknowledge the Bunurong and their elders past, present and emerging as the traditional custodians of this beautiful land that we are joining you from tonight, and thank them for looking after this land and letting it become what it is today that we're lucky enough to see and lucky enough to have these beautiful little penguins still here. And if you guys are joining us from anywhere else throughout Australia or around the world, let us know where you're joining us from. If you know the traditional custodians of the land you're on, throw that in the comments as well. We love seeing where everyone's from and that acknowledgement and respect for the people, the traditional people of the land. Now, I'm trying to see where this little group of penguins to the right has gone. We might zoom back over to the rocks and see where they are. Oh, and the Pacific gull hasn't flown away. It's just moved over here onto the rocks. Might be trying to head off this group of penguins. So we'll keep an eye on him and we'll try and see where these penguins have gone. We've all seen Goose Gate. Maybe we're going to have a bit of Gull Gate tonight. We might have this Pacific gull standing in the penguins' way. But I can't see where they've gone. Maybe they ditched the rocks and they've gone back into the water. We did have that second little group. Might go over and see where they've gone. Maybe they've had a little bit more luck further along the beach without that gull. And luckily it's a lot easier to see tonight than it was last night with that sea mist. It's a little bit calmer out there tonight, a little bit better to try and spot these penguins coming out of the water. They're being a little bit elusive tonight, going in and out because it is still a little bit bright. The penguins came in very, very late last night. They didn't come in till, what time did they come in last night, Heather?
8:29.
8:29. Gosh, I thought I was talking for a long time last night. 8:29. So they kept us waiting very, very long time last night. The night before they came in at 8:13. So I do hope that they're not going to keep us waiting for too long tonight. I think it's a good sign we've already seen some at the water's edge, but you never know. Penguins, I always feel like they like to keep you guessing, keep you on your toes. As soon as I say they're going to do something, they often like to do the opposite. Oh, you can see the beautiful moon up there reflecting on the beach. I think that's incredible, and that's probably what's scared our penguins back into the water, because they're not going by little watches to see when they're going to come in and cross the beach. Our little penguins are just looking, waiting till it's dark enough. So that moon coming out from the clouds might have given them a bit of a fright. It's made it quite a bit brighter down here on the beach. So they may be being extra cautious, especially because we have a big, wide beach to cross tonight. They have a long way to walk, which makes them more vulnerable to those predators like that Pacific gull. So we'll have a bit of a look. Keep an eye on this section, because this is usually where we see our first group of penguins. I'll zoom out so we can keep an eye on a bigger stretch of beach. We might go over and check where the gull is. Oh, so it is a scary night for our penguins here on Halloween, as they have a big beach to cross, a bright moon, and predators about. So making this dangerous dash is going to be quite difficult for them, but they are quite well adapted to avoiding predators. They're natural predators here on land, so and in the ocean. So penguins are really well suited. Oh no, that's scary. Oh, there was a predator that gave me a real fright. That was one of the predators that is on land that shouldn't be. So if anybody spotted that, it quickly ran away. It didn't catch me. I'm very lucky. That was a fox, so a European red fox. And that is an animal that our penguins have had a lot of problems with here on Phillip Island and around Australia, because foxes were introduced here by Europeans. And penguins have no natural defense against a predator like a fox. So one fox here on Phillip Island was actually killing up to 40 penguins every night. So it was an actual Halloween nightmare for these penguins trying to escape these foxes. So it had a huge impact on our penguin numbers, and it contributed to a big decline. And in the 80s, we had only about 12,000 penguins in our penguin colony here on Phillip Island. So there has been a lot of work done to help protect our penguins, and there was a penguin protection plan put in place, which involved the eradication of foxes from Phillip Island. It took many, many years to get rid of these foxes, and a variety of different methods, spotlighting, trapping, baiting, used to get rid of these foxes until there was only one fox left on the whole island. And Heather actually knows a lot about this fox, and his nickname was the Phantom, because Heather's son, Bo, spent 2 years searching for the Phantom. So he was very elusive, very, very sneaky. And what year was it that he managed to find the Phantom, Heather? Do you remember?
That's a very good question. 2015, I think.
2015. There we go. I thought it was something like that. 2015, the Phantom was caught. And that was the last fox that we've seen here on Phillip Island, which has been fantastic for our little penguins and our native wildlife here. Oh, there we go. There's some more penguins. Let's zoom in on these little guys, who are much, much safer now, thanks to Heather's son, Bo, and the fellow rangers helping remove those foxes from Phillip Island. Oh, are they penguins? No, maybe I'm seeing things. Maybe that's just rocks. So our penguins are much, much safer now, and the fox eradication program, as well as restoration of penguin habitat, has helped our penguin numbers to more than double here on Phillip Island on the Summerland Peninsula. So now we have about 32,000 little penguins on Phillip Island, which is really exciting. We do have the largest colony of little penguins in the world, and that's thanks to those efforts to remove foxes from Phillip Island and make it a safe haven for wildlife. So we have lots of threatened wildlife here on Phillip Island. We have our little penguins. We also have our hooded plovers, our short-tailed shearwaters, our eastern barred bandicoots. If you don't know what I'm talking about, look some of these animals up. They are beautiful animals that we're lucky enough to have here. Because of our fox-free status, they are thriving. And we do help protect them here at Phillip Island Nature Park. So, and we continue that fox monitoring. We do have a camera up on the bridge to make sure no foxes come back across. There's a buffer zone across the bridge in San Remo where foxes are controlled to help try and make sure they don't come back here. And we do actually have some fox eradication dogs, fox detection dogs named Jazz and Lady, who are specially trained to sniff out those foxes and helped contribute to that eradication. So Lady's been lucky enough to just retire this month. So we've said goodbye to Lady. She's done a terrific job helping us rid the island of foxes and protect our wildlife here at Phillip Island Nature Parks, not just in the penguin colony, but we do manage about 20% of Phillip Island. Here at Phillip Island Nature Parks, we manage our Koala Conservation Reserve, the Nobbies Centre, Churchill Island Heritage Farm, many of our beautiful beaches, wetlands and woodlands all around the island, as well as our little penguin colony and a colony of about 20,000 Australian fur seals. So we do our best to protect all of these beautiful wild animals from any of those introduced or human-induced threats that they may face. So our penguins are now safe from foxes, and they just have to worry about those natural threats. And they're quite good at avoiding those natural predators, the ones that should be here, because that's what they've evolved with. That's what they've adapted to overcome. And they're running back in the water. That's a pretty good adaptation for our little penguins to avoid any birds that they might see flying overhead or on the beach, because they're really well camouflaged when they're in the water. So our little penguins, they also get called little blue penguins or blue penguins in New Zealand because they have a beautiful blue back, even the tops of their beak and the bottoms of their feet. I'm sorry, my beak isn't blue, but the tops of their beaks are blue to help them camouflage when they're floating on the surface. They blend in really well. So when they're out in the water, a predator can't really see them looking down from above. Looking up from below, their little white tummies blend in with the sky. So they're really hard to see, well protected from predators in the ocean. So it's not too scary for them out at sea. But when they do come in across the beach, that is when they're the most vulnerable because they are so much more conspicuous. So you can see how much easier it is to spot them when they're on the beach. Now they're running back into the water. They're really hard to see. We can really only see them right now because they are in a group. We have a nice zoom on our camera. Otherwise, you probably wouldn't even notice they're there, apart from hearing that huck, huck, huck in the water. Maybe wondering what it was if you haven't heard that huck before. This is just a little group of penguins, which might be why they're a little bit more cautious. Usually they will come with a few more friends, a few more colleagues to cross the beach to make them feel a little bit safer. I will check if there's any more penguins along the beach here. It doesn't look like it. These guys are just super keen to get home, waiting there. They might wait for a few more penguins to join them, or if it gets dark enough and they're feeling brave, they might cross all on their own. But they're trying to make up their minds. They're going in and out of the water. In the water, we do call them a raft of penguins. When they come onto the beach, we like to call them a waddle of penguins. So I do like a term one of our waddle watchers suggested was a roddle, when they can't make up their mind whether they want to be a raft or a waddle. And that's kind of what these guys are doing at the moment. They're coming in and out, having a look around, trying to see whether it's safe to cross the beach or not. And while we're patiently waiting for these little penguins, we might see if Heather has any questions for us about these little guys. Do we have any questions that have come through just yet, Heather?
Yeah, Lachlan wants to know, is there people here all night looking after the penguins?
Ooh, that's a good question, Lachlan. Are there people here all night looking after our penguins? Well, we will be here at least from when the penguins first start crossing the beach. We will be counting them for 50 minutes. So we'll be here for about an hour. After they start crossing, we'll be counting them for most of that time. And then when we have visitors here, we'll slowly lead all the visitors off the boardwalks. We'll let the penguins have a bit of peace and quiet. And then all of our rangers actually go home. But that doesn't mean our penguins aren't protected, because we actually have some lovely rangers who stay back. They're the very last ones here, and they will close up all the gates behind us. So nobody will be in the penguin colony after everyone else has left. So after all the rangers go, the gates are locked and no one can come in and bother the penguins. The penguins have this entire peninsula all to themselves, which is incredible, especially because this peninsula is been penguin colony for as long as there have been, as long as we've been here, but it actually used to be a housing estate. So in the 1920s, the Summerland Peninsula, where our little penguins lived, was turned into a housing estate. So there was 183 houses built right in the middle of the penguin colony, which had a huge impact on our penguins. And that was one of the things, in conjunction with the foxes, that led to the reduction in our penguin numbers here on Phillip Island, because penguins were trying to nest under people's houses. They were coming to conflict with pet cats and dogs. They were getting run over on the roads, and it was very difficult for our little penguins trying to live with people. So what happened is that in 1985, the government actually started a housing buyback. So they brought back all of those 183 houses on the peninsula for the protection of our beautiful little penguins, because it was estimated that we wouldn't have any penguins left here by the year 2000 if nothing was done. So it did take 20 years and millions and millions of dollars to get rid of those houses, but now the peninsula is completely house free. All the roads are closed off after sunset, so our penguins are perfectly safe. There's no foxes, no people up here throughout the night. Once we're all gone home, the penguins have all of this peninsula to themselves. So they are perfectly safe up here, and they're left to do what they would do naturally. So they are wild animals. We want them to have a wild colony to live in. So we do only see about 10 to 15% of our penguin colony that actually lives here at the Penguin Parade. The rest of them live throughout the rest of the Summerland Peninsula. So that's why we don't see 32,000 penguins crossing our beach here tonight, because this is only a small part of that entire penguin colony. But these guys have it nice and easy crossing this nice big open beach. Not as easy as some of our other penguins who live on other places around the peninsula where they have steep cliffs they have to waddle up to get to their burrows right at the top, and some of them do have to waddle up to 2 kilometres to get home. So some of our penguins have quite a difficult journey, even more difficult than just having that dangerous dash across the beach. Now I just want to go over and have a bit of a look if that Pacific gull is still there, and it looks like it's gone. So hopefully that gives our penguins a little bit of confidence as they're getting ready to cross the beach. And we haven't had any penguins crossing yet, have we, Heather?
No, we haven't.
No, they're taking their time tonight, just as I hoped they wouldn't, but that's okay, because they are scared. It is scary each and every night for our little penguins crossing the beach, not just on Halloween. They always are a little bit frightened, especially when there is a low tide and a bright moon. And where did they go? Did they go back in the water? Sorry, I hope I'm not making you seasick moving back and forth. There they are. They're hiding in the rocks. So tonight we do have Ranger Cat, who's going to be counting these penguins. So she's waiting very patiently up in the skybox with her binoculars, watching these penguins, waiting for these guys to cross the beach. And let's see how many penguins we have here. So if you guys do want to practice being a penguin counter, we'll zoom in, pretend this is your binoculars, and see if you can count how many penguins are in this first group. It's a nice, small, easy group to count, and we need at least 5 penguins in this group to cross if we want to have an official start to our penguin count. So let's see how many is there. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I can see at least 8. But I'm not the greatest penguin counter. That's why Kat's counting. Heather is a terrific penguin counter. She's counted penguins for many years. I've only done it a handful of times, so I would definitely trust their counting over mine. But give us a guess as to how many you think is in this group. It's a nice, small, easy one. But Kat will actually be waiting till these penguins get more than halfway across the beach before she counts them, because they could run right back into the water if they get a fright. And there isn't any leader in this group, in this waddle of penguins. It only takes one penguin to start walking. The rest of them will go, okay, it's safe, we're going. And they'll start walking. But then it only takes 1 or 2 penguins to get a fright and run back. And they'll all go, oh no, there's something scary. And they'll run back in the water. Oh, and there's a big group that's just arrived as well. I'll try and watch both of them at the same time. There you go. You've had a bit of practice counting that little group. Now you can try and count this big group as well. So this should make these penguins feel a lot safer as they're coming out of the water. They might even join together because this first group's going quite slow. These guys behind might power along and catch up with this group of penguins. There we go. They're all going to join together. That'll make them feel a lot more confident crossing the beach. Oh, they're coming from everywhere now. Wow, that gull's gone. It's gotten a little bit darker. The moon's gone behind the clouds. Now penguins look like they're feeling much safer as they're starting to cross the beach. I think we might have just had a start to our penguin count. Is that right, Heather?
That's the start. Yeah.
Beautiful. Start to our penguin count at 8:26, so slightly earlier than last night. So now Kat has 50 minutes, so that's 50 minutes that she'll be counting these little penguins for, and we'll get to watch them for about 20 minutes. So we won't get to see all the penguins that come in tonight. So if you're trying to count them and you're trying to make a guess as to how many crossed, maybe count them and then double it. But most of them do come in that first half an hour or so that we'll be watching them. But they do continue to come out throughout that whole time we're counting them, sometimes for up to 3 hours after sunset. We'll see some stragglers still coming in, but most of them will come in at the start of the night. And you can see these penguins have hit the rocks and they slowed down, not just because it's a little bit trickier to climb over the rocks, but because they are feeling a bit safer now. They are a lot better camouflaged in the rocks. They feel a bit safer, so they can take their time a little bit more. But this big group is moving a lot quicker than that little group. Looks like the little group's going to move a bit quicker now to try and join them. A bit of safety in numbers for these little penguins. And that's a big group. I don't envy Kat trying to count these guys going through the rocks. And there's a couple little stragglers behind. Oh no, they've gotten a fright. Oh, something scared them. They're all running back in the water. I can't see what's done it. But poor Kat, she's probably counted all of these penguins and they're running back. Oh no, what's that? Oh, it's a scary bird. Better run back in the water. That'll be what scared our little penguins. A bird flying overhead, and it doesn't matter what type of bird it was. That one that just scared me, that was a short-tailed shearwater. And we do have a number of short-tailed shearwaters that nest here at the Penguin Parade and around Phillip Island, and they are harmless to the penguins. They're big black birds. They have a wingspan of about 1 metre, and they migrate here each year around the end of September, start of October. They come here all the way from Alaska, off the Aleutian Islands. So they come a very, very long way. They fly non-stop to get here to make their burrows, to lay their eggs and raise their chicks before they go back up to Alaska in around April next year, leaving their chicks to follow them up a couple of weeks after they leave. So the shearwaters are incredible birds, but they eat mostly krill. So the shearwater isn't going to eat a penguin, but even a shearwater flying overhead, maybe even a silver gull. We get a lot of masked lapwings, sooty oyster catchers, all types of birds that might fly overhead and give our penguins a fright. So it doesn't necessarily need to be a bird of prey, but it could have been. It could have been that Pacific gull flying overhead that's given these guys a fright and run back in the water. So if you think you've counted those penguins, think again. We're going to have to count them all over again. Because I didn't see any that made it up across the rocks. Let's have a little bit of a look. No, I think they all ran back. There you go. Like I was saying before, it just takes a few penguins to get a fright and run back in the water, and they will all run back. So these little guys do want to stay together. They do have that safety in numbers, and now they have a nice big group. They've all joined together, so hopefully it's not going to take them too much longer to cross. Oh, there is a couple of penguins that have stayed in the rocks just there. And poor Kat, I don't envy her having to count these penguins. There was one night where I had to count the penguins, and I'd only just learned how to count them. So it was only my second time counting them, and I counted them all the way up to the rocks. I thought I'd gotten quite close to the number, and then a goose flew overhead, a big Cape Barren goose, and it scared the penguins, but they didn't all run back. Some of them ran back into the water, and some of them ran onto land. and I couldn't tell you how many penguins went each way. So that was a particularly difficult night counting, but there was only about 300 penguins that night. So it's going to be a lot more difficult for Cat tonight if they do that again. Hopefully they don't, but it looks like they're going to have another go crossing the beach. And these wattles, these rafts of penguins, they are different each and every night. So this group isn't a group of friends or a group of family. It's kind of just like you guys catching the train home from work at the end of the day. The penguins have been out fishing all day. They've been out working. They've been to the supermarket, and then they join together with whichever penguins are going back to the same place at the same time, for that safety in numbers. So it's like a little train coming into the station. All these penguins are on the same carriage, going to the same place, getting off at the same time. Some of them might know each other, but most of them are probably strangers, and they're just together for that convenience to travel together. And then as they're walking along, they'll all get off at their own little stops depending on where they live. So some of these penguins might have their little beachfront mansions just here, and some of them will be walking up to 2 kilometres to get home. On there, almost up. Hopefully they're not going to go back now. I was very surprised that they ran back after they'd gotten more than halfway across. But they're almost there. Come on, little guys, you can do it. You can make it up across the rocks. Almost there. And as we're watching these little guys making their way up, we might grab another question from Heather. So Heather, do you have another question for us? I'm sure there's lots of lovely questions in the comments.
I do, Megan. Kate Rose wants to know what penguin feathers feel like.
Oh, that's a great question. That's Kat.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, Kate. What do penguin feathers feel like? Wow. So I have handled a lot of penguins in my time, and they're very, very soft. So penguin feathers are nice and waterproof, the ones that you'll feel on the outside on an adult penguin. An adult penguin does feel different to a penguin chick, and they do feel different at different times of the day. So if you go out and pick up a penguin from its burrow, sometimes they can feel a little bit dusty because they're completely dry. Their feathers are dry, but they're still quite smooth and silky because they'll be preening. They'll be aligning those feathers. They have a little oil gland below their tail, so they'll get some oil. They will put that through their feathers as well. So they can be a little bit slippery, a little bit oily. But as soon as they come out of the water, they are a bit wet, but they also feel really, really smooth. When they come out of the water, they just feel really lovely. I don't quite know how to describe it, but they do feel different depending on how long they've been on land. The longer they're on land, the more kind of dusty their feathers feel, and the less time they've been on land, the more silky they are. And the little penguin chicks, they have brown fluffy feathers, so they just feel kind of like a little almost like rabbit fur. If you've ever felt rabbit fur or something like that, they're just fluff pretty much. They're just soft, fluffy down, really, really light feathers, but the adult feathers are really smooth and sleek, kind of like satin or something like that. So that's a good question. I don't think we've ever had that one before. And it's not something you ever really get to experience unless you are specially trained to handle these little penguins. We do have a few taxidermy penguins that people can touch, but it is a little bit different to feel a real life penguin. But they are wild animals, so we only handle them when it's absolutely necessary. So that's for research. So we do handle the penguins. We try to avoid handling the adults as much as possible. So we'll handle an adult if we have to put a tracker on them, or if they don't have a microchip so we can identify them. But usually we'll try to avoid that as much as possible unless they are sick or injured. So if we do find a sick or injured penguin, here at the Penguin Parade, we do try to catch that penguin and take it to our wildlife clinics. So we do have a clinic here for not just our little penguins, but all of our wildlife around the island. so that they can be really rehabilitated for release back into the wild. And that wildlife clinic is actually funded by our Penguin Foundation. So if you do want to help our gorgeous little penguins and any of these little guys that might come into a bit of strife, you can help us out by adopting a penguin or donating to the Penguin Foundation. You can get one of these adorable little stuffed penguins with a little jumper on. And that makes a huge difference to helping out our little penguins and funding the work we do here at Phillip Island Nature Parks, helping out our penguins through education, research, conservation, as well as that wildlife clinic where we do care for any sick or injured wildlife. So they're the only reasons we do handle these little guys. Otherwise, they are completely wild. We let them do as they please, and trust me, you don't want to handle a penguin to know what they feel like. Penguins, as cute and cuddly as they look, that's certainly not what they are. They are feisty birds. They have a lot of attitude, and they will try to fight you. So they have very sharp beaks, particularly the big male penguins. When they bite you, they love to grab and twist and shake and hit you with their flippers. They're very feisty, and they're also quite stinky. So if you haven't watched Jordan on the live stream before, I'd recommend it because you'll learn a lot about penguin poo. And penguins, I think my favorite fact about them is that they do have the highest velocity poo of any animal. So that means that they poo the fastest, and they can poo further than the length of their own body. I was actually microchipping a few chicks last week so that we could track them and see when they come back. It's kind of like giving them a little bit of a name so we know which chick is which. And Jordan was holding the chick while we were getting ready to microchip it, and that chick did a projectile poo, and I think it pooed more than a meter. It was very, very impressive. So trust me, holding a penguin or handling a penguin, even if it's for the best, there we go. Did everybody see that one just poo? Perfect. I might go back up. It's a little bit difficult to see down here. But I hope you all saw that penguin poo. That was exactly what I was talking about. So handling a penguin is a hazard. It's a very high chance that you're going to get pooed on, and penguin poo is stinky. It smells like fish because that's what these guys eat. They eat small fish, things like sardines, anchovies, pilchards, squid, jellyfish, anything that will fit in their mouths, and that is what their poo smells like. So you don't want that on you. And I'm just going to switch over to the highway camera. And as we see these guys nice and close up, waddling past here, see if you can spot any pooing. And be thankful that you can't smell it, that we don't have smell-o-vision here on the Penguin live stream. But it is all part of being in a penguin colony, so we do hope that very soon, if you haven't been able to visit us already, that you will be able to come and visit. We are lucky enough to have guests from regional Victoria joining us at the moment, and hopefully soon we'll have people from the rest of Victoria, from Melbourne, able to visit, and then the rest of Australia, and hopefully the rest of the world. So we are looking forward to having you all back here when we can safely do so. And then you can experience that smell of the penguin poo and that noise. So I hope that our demonstrations do it justice. I am dressed as a penguin tonight, so I might try and demonstrate what it sounds like. So you'll hear the huck, 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 huck of those penguins as they swim in and crossing the beach. And then when they're on land, they have all kinds of calls. So we estimate that our penguins have about 12 different kinds of calls that they make. So you'll hear it, the trill, the that might be a male penguin trying to impress a female, or just someone warning another penguin that, oh, you're a bit too close to my burrow. Especially the males, they're very territorial. They don't want any other males getting too close. You might just hear the odd which isn't a huck. It's a bit of a fright, getting a bit of a shock. You'll hear the little chip, 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 chip of the chicks. And I've even had some penguins hiss at me when they're not too happy. Are there any penguin calls that I've missed, Heather? Any that are your specialty?
No.
Okay. I can't get you to do any penguin calls for us.
No, but I would like to give a shout out because I was on the stands last night and I met a little guy named Albert, and he was 6 last night.
Aw.
So Albert and Felix, who are from regional Victoria, who watch the live streaming every night, came to visit last night.
Oh,
So,
beautiful. Hi, Albert and Felix. I hope you guys are watching tonight, and we're so happy that we're able to welcome you back. I'm sure you had a fantastic night with Heather last night, and it's great to see people coming to visit us and saying that they watched the live stream. We absolutely love it. Oh, and we have a shell girder up on our highway camera. I'll see if I can switch over quick enough to catch her. She's moving quite quickly. So this penguin walking the other way, if you haven't seen one of these guys before, it is a shell gridder. So that is a female penguin who's getting ready to lay eggs. Oh, she's going to get bombarded by these penguins as they're coming around the corner. She's walking down to the beach to eat little pieces of shell to get some extra calcium to help her build the shells of her eggs. So she's probably going to lay eggs very, very soon. She would have been spending the day in her burrow. She doesn't want to accidentally lay the eggs out at sea or anywhere else in the colony. She wants to make sure she's at home when she's ready to lay those eggs. So she'll be heading out to out to the beach, getting those little pieces of shell. Then she'll be going back up to her burrow, getting ready to lay those eggs. And we have stacks of penguins coming in now. It was a little bit of a slow start, but the highway, it's definitely peak hour on the highway right now with all of these penguins coming past. They don't have lanes going opposite ways, so it's a little bit hard for our little shell gridder trying to make it down to the beach. She looks like she just stopped. She's waiting for the flow of traffic to go past before she continues on. Sometimes I think that these shell gridders get a little bit of baby brain almost. They might get a little bit turned around, a little bit confused, thinking, oh, am I meant to be following those penguins? Am I meant to be going along with them? No, hang on, wait, I want to go down to the beach. Especially because she's all on her own. Sometimes we do see the shell gridders going out in what I like to call a little mothers group. They might find a few more mothers to be along the way and walk down to the beach with them. It looks like she's almost made it. We'll head back over. We might just see if there's any more penguins crossing the beach.
I do have another question for you, Megan, and that is,
Fantastic.
do penguins feel hot? Do they feel the heat in summer, or do they prefer to be cooler?
Ooh, that's
Good
a great
question.
question. Yeah. Do penguins feel the heat in summer, or do they prefer to be cool? And I'm sure, I'm going to zoom over because we have another big group of penguins. Oh my God, there's heaps of penguins crossing the beach. So I'm sure when you all think of penguins, you usually think of those big penguins that live in Antarctica, the big emperor penguins, king penguins, the ones that live in those really cool places. And penguins do generally like to be cool, but pretty much the cooler it is, the bigger the penguins will be. So in Antarctica, you have the biggest species of penguin, the emperor penguin, because they need to be really big to stay warm. But our little penguins, they are so small because they are better adapted to dealing with the heat. So because it does get a lot warmer here in Australia than it does in Antarctica, the penguins are small so that they can lose heat more rapidly and they can deal better with the heat. But it doesn't mean they like it. So our penguins are probably a lot happier being on land in winter. It's a lot easier for them to regulate their temperature. But when they are on land, if it gets above about 30 degrees Celsius, our penguins can get a little bit stressed from the heat. So they definitely prefer the cooler temperatures when they're on land, but when they're out at sea, they do need increases in sea surface temperature to provide an increase in productivity that gives them enough food to breed. So it's a little bit of a conundrum. They do want to be on land when it's a bit cooler, but when it is the hottest on land, there is the most food available. So that's when they have to be on the land the most frequently. So they have to come in more and more often when they are breeding. So they have eggs and chicks on land during spring and summer. So that's when they have to be here quite often. So they do have to do their very best to try and deal with those hot days. The penguins will pant if they need to. They might even go out to the water and go for a swim to cool down if they're here on land and they do get a little bit heat stress. But we do try and keep an eye out on a hot day or where we have consecutive hot days. Our rangers will do patrols and look for any of those heat stressed penguins if they do need to be taken to the wildlife clinic for rehabilitation or just to give them some fluids and a bit of a cool down to release them. But we found that this has started to become a problem more and more as our climate's getting a little bit warmer. So we are having more extreme temperatures, so more hot days, day after day, more of those heat waves that do have more of an impact on our penguins. So we have a few ways to try and help these little guys out. So you would have seen some of our wooden nesting boxes. Maybe I'll zoom over there now. I'll follow some of these penguins across. So if you haven't tuned in before, you can see what I'm talking about. Let's have a bit of a look. We might even see if there's some chicks home at the moment. Oh, there we go. Who's over here? Is that a burrow or just some penguins going up the hill? Just some penguins hanging out there. Where is the wooden box that I'm looking for? Let's have a bit of a look. So they are wooden nesting boxes that we make for our little penguins. There we go. They're over here. I get so disoriented with this grass. It's gotten so long. So we make these little wooden boxes for the penguins to live in. And oh, this one's quite well covered, but they do get a little bit warm in some of these wooden boxes. So something we're actually working on. Oh, it's a bit of a fight. Oh, or maybe it's something else. Oh, sorry guys. They've gone into the grass. Oh, I wanted to see what was happening there. So something we're actually working on at the moment is developing some penguin boxes with some special lids with pitched roofs or little pipes in the top for ventilation and airflow to try and keep these penguins a little bit cooler when we do have those heat waves. So that's actually something that our researchers are working on, testing out which burrows stay the coolest so that we can implement those to help our little penguins stay cooler as our climate gets a little bit warmer. And what are these penguins in the grass doing? I'm sorry guys, we do only have 5 minutes left of the live stream tonight. It always goes so quickly. And I don't know what these penguins in the grass are doing, but while we try and figure that out, maybe we'll grab another question from Heather. I'm sure you've all been sending her through many questions about our little penguins. What have you got for me, Heather?
Let me have a little look here. So are penguins scared of thunderstorms when it's very dark and stormy?
Ooh, that's a good question. So we're learning a lot about how our penguins, well, I was talking about how they adapt to the heat, but how do they find thunderstorms? So they don't like bright flashes of light, and we have found that can quite scare them. So I've never actually watched the penguins during a thunderstorm because we do try not to be on the beach during a thunderstorm. But I imagine if the bright flash got too close to their eyes, they wouldn't like it. But I don't think it would be the thunder or lightning that would be bothering them too much. The rain certainly wouldn't bother them because they've come out of the water. That's what they're adapted to. They don't mind getting wet, but big storms actually affect our penguins out in the ocean when they're trying to find food, because our little penguins use something called thermoclines. It's a fancy term for it, but it's pretty much just different temperature layers in the water, and they use those layers to trap fish to catch them and find food. So when there's a big storm, that stirs up all of that water and it gets rid of those temperature layers, which makes it a lot harder for our penguins to catch food. So if we have a lot of big stormy nights, night after night or day after day, it can have an impact on our penguins' ability to find food. So as much as the rain or the thunder or the lightning might not bother the penguins, that change in the temperature layers of the water certainly affects them when they're out at sea. So if we do have more and more storms, that can make it harder for our penguins to find food. So that's a really excellent question. Thank you for that one. So our penguins, they do spend about 80% of their time out at sea. So that is where they do face most of their threats. So we talked a bit about the foxes here on land, and we do our very best to protect our penguins here on land by removing those introduced predators, closing the roads after sunset. But something that's a lot harder for us to do is to protect our penguins when they're out at sea. So you might have seen this little guy that we show quite often, our little penguin with the jumper on. And I don't know if any of you ever thought too hard about why a little penguin might need to wear a jumper. It's not a fashion statement. If you think you know why, post in the comments. I'll give you a hint. It's not to stay warm. These jumpers are actually for penguins who get sick or injured. And when they get sick or injured because of an oil spill. So when a penguin's swimming out at sea, sometimes they might come into contact with oil. It might have come from a ship, or it might have washed into the water from land. And penguins have those very special waterproof feathers. So if they get oil on their feathers, it makes them stick together, and that penguin isn't waterproof. And a penguin's instinct, so I'll just zoom over and we'll watch these little guys coming up the rocks. And you can see what these guys are doing. Their instinct is to preen their feathers. They want to realign those feathers, making sure they're nice and waterproof. So if there is oil on their feathers, they'll preen it using their beak, and then what happens is that they actually end up swallowing that oil, and that can make the penguins quite sick. So if we do have an oil spill, and we did have one back in 2002, what we do is we go out and we try and catch any penguins that have oil on them, and that is when we put a little jumper on these penguins. And what that jumper does is that it stops them preening that oil. It stops them eating the oil. It stops them getting sick until we can wash them. And it might take a few days, a few weeks of washing those penguins over and over again to get rid of that oil. So in the meantime, we put those little jumpers on them until they can be washed, and then they get to be rehabilitated. They get to put those natural oils through their feathers. They have to undergo a little swim test to make sure they're ready to go before they're released back into the wild. So we do make sure here at Phillip Island we are prepared in case we ever do have another oil spill. And that is why we have these little penguin jumpers. Because we have about 32,000 penguins here on Phillip Island, if each and every one of our penguins got oil on them, we would need hundreds of thousands of jumpers to wash those penguins over and over again and remove that oil. So something we've actually done over the years is put a call out for penguin jumpers from people from all over the world. So we've received probably millions and millions of these penguin jumpers that people have lovingly knitted for our little penguins. And not all of them fit a penguin. So that's why we have some of these jumpers on our little soft toys. The ones that don't exactly fit a penguin, or if they have little embellishments. I know this is a beautiful one with little fairy wings, perfectly dressed penguin for Halloween. But we couldn't put that on a real life penguin because they might get their beak stuck in it. So any little jumpers that are too beautiful or don't fit our little penguins properly, we put them on these little stuffed penguins and we sell them in the store to raise money for the Penguin Foundation, or you can get one if you become a penguin pal. So those little jumpers serve a fantastic purpose in preparing us for a possible oil spill, so we can rehabilitate our little penguins and protect them from that oil. But they also help us raise money for our Penguin Foundation, which goes right back into that wildlife hospital and the research, education and conservation of our wildlife. So I think I've probably gone well over our last 5 minutes, but I do want to thank you all so much for joining tonight. I hope you've all had a fantastic Halloween. I hope you've all got lots of candy. You having not too much of a spooky night, and I hope you've all enjoyed watching our beautiful little penguins as they cross the beach. Remember, if you do want to help us protect them, you can donate to the Penguin Foundation. You can adopt one of our adorable little penguins with a penguin, one of those little penguin jumpers on them. And if you haven't had your question answered tonight, tune in again tomorrow night. Or if you just love little penguins like we do, tune in night after night. We'll be here each and every night. I think you have myself and Anna tomorrow night. So we'd love to see you all back here on Live Penguin TV. So we'll see you all again soon. We might leave you with our signature hug. What do you think, Heather?
Definitely.
Yeah. Bye, everybody. Hug, 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 hug.